It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So hype right now. Anything's possible. I'm on mama. I'm on my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Rainy J's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global, but it got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, that's the best way. Melly.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. I want to thank you for making this show part of your daily routine. Whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you are going, I'm glad you're taking me with you on your ride to work, at work, in your shower, whatever it is, or if you're watching on YouTube, however you decide to watch on YouTube. I'm John Karalis. I cover the team for the Boston Sports Journal, and I have written a book. It's called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. And it is available wherever books are sold. Also, signed copies on my website, johnkaralis.com. I am streaming live on YouTube and on Periscope to get people to ask me questions. It is a live Q&A podcast. So hopefully this thing works that I'm using to do my multiple stream live podcast. So if you are watching right now and you have questions, you can ask them and I should be able to see them. In fact, here's a nice little test, a comment from YouTube that says, John, thank you, Donald Brown. All right, so pop the questions into the comments, pop the questions into a tweet, and I will start answering them. This is different. Normally I get the questions ahead of time. I get to pick and all this other stuff. So I will try to follow them live. The audio of this will be the podcast, the daily podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Locker Room. Download the app. Join me this week, generally on Fridays, to get in on the action. They are on iOS. They have an Android beta, so download that Locker Room app. Locker Room is changing the way we talk about sports. I'm changing the way we talk about sports right now with a stream of questions from people, and I'll just put one up here. Is there an update on Jaylen Brown? We have not heard any news on Jaylen Brown, which is actually not a bad thing. Adam Himmelsbach of the Boston Globe did have a tweet that said no official update yet, but they are optimistic. They don't think that he had any sort of serious injury. From what I saw, it didn't look like it would have been a serious injury, but what it looked like was an aggravation of the right ankle sprain that he had from earlier. So he had a couple of days where the right ankle was a problem, and right now, so far, it seems like it might just be a lingering ankle issue. So right now, nothing. Let me get to Fuzzy Dunlap. You get one three-pointer to win a game. Which bench role player do you give it to? Ooh, okay. There are not that many options off of the bench. I think as far as the real options are what? Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith at this point, right? Nesmith has come on, and I think Nesmith is generally the better shooter. But Peyton Pritchard is older, 4-year guy at Oregon, and I think Nesmith is eventually going to be the guy. Right now it's Pritchard because I just think he's more poised. Nesmith is going to be the better player, but right now I think Pritchard is the more poised shooter, a guy that I might trust a little bit more just because he's a little bit older and he's been around He's been in these games. He's been in some pretty big games in college. So that's my answer there. Let me keep on going here. Boy, these things are flying in. This is great. Do you think Kemba will be in Boston until his contract is up, or will he be traded before then? So I'm not – the way it's trending right now, it really just depends on the ownership's appetite for paying that luxury tax. If they're willing to pay a little extra luxury tax, then maybe he does stay throughout the duration of his contract. If we're going historically, as Ryan Bernardoni at Danger Cart on Twitter points out regularly, historically they have not paid a ton of tax. And that's, I think, worth noting, because recent history will help dictate what the future is. So if the Celtics don't have an appetite for paying a tax bill, and if they don't think that they're 100% contenders, like if keeping Kemba Walker is the difference between a championship and not a championship, then they'll keep him, or a chance at a championship. If keeping Kemba Walker is a hindrance of any sort, or if it costs them too much, and if Danny Ainge can't convince the ownership group that this is a team that can contend with Kemba, with them paying the tax, then they might have to make a move. And then now it just depends on his performance moving forward and how much a team thinks he can help. And will the Celtics have to attach a second-round pick, a first-round pick, or whatever to move him? This is the ugly business of the NBA, where this type of stuff matters. The one wild card that I want to keep in mind is this looming, a few years from now, new TV contract that may be, and obviously this is not, that it hasn't been negotiated at all, but the rumors, the reports that I'd seen say that this thing could be significantly more than this current TV contract. I know TV ratings are what they are, and that's going to have to change. But if TV networks feel like they're going to get their money's worth out of this, and this next TV deal goes up, then maybe the Celtics will say, hey, we know we've got more money coming, and so we're more willing to keep Kemba, even if he's in a reduced role. I think there's value to keeping Kemba, but I understand I understand where both sides are coming from here. Let me go back to the comments here real quick. Tim says, I went back to the box scores from the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals. Totally forgot about Steamsma. How can you forget about Steamsma? He was the next Bill Russell. Noah wants to know, do we see development to Rob's game where Brad allows him to handle the ball a little bit more and move the ball faster in transition? He's not there yet. He's nowhere near there yet. But I think that there's room for, like, Rob's never going to bring the ball up. He's never going to bring the ball up. Can he dribble the ball a little bit more? Sure. I think where Robert Williams' ball handling skills will help is if he can put the ball on the deck 2-3 times and get to the rim, that's going to be a big deal, because that opens up the fake dribble handoff. That's I think Bam Adebayo, that type of play. If Rob can fake the dribble handoff, Grant Williams is good at this. Fake the dribble handoff, take 2-3 dribbles, and then finish at the rim. Then watch out, because that makes him a ton more dangerous. Is anybody going to outlet the ball to Robert Williams? I don't think so. Maybe on the rare occasion, in a double team, in a press situation, he might get the ball and have to beat the shot, the 8-second count. That's possible, but he's never going to be, I don't think, an outlet guy. But hey, who knows? You work on your handle 2-3 years. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but definitely needs to work on his handle. And if he can fake dribble handoff and attack the rim, or slip a screen, like a high pick and roll, and slip a screen and get the pass and turn and feel comfortable taking 2 dribbles, even if it's 2 dribbles and whipping a pass out to the corner for a corner 3, that's going to be a huge development. So I do think that Rob increasing or improving his ball handling will be a good idea. Let me take a moment here to tell you all about Locker Room. This episode is brought to you by Locker Room. It's the first social audio platform that's made for sports fans. It's free to download. Once you are in, you can talk to me, other fans, athletes, insiders, all in real time. I generally do them on Fridays. It's really cool. It's like sports talk radio on your device. You hop on stage. I bring you on. We talk for 2-3 minutes. Meanwhile, people are in the chat. They're talking back and forth. It's been a really fun experience. I go for an hour and I have to stop. We've already got characters developing within the people who are on Locker Room. So download the Locker Room app. You're going to join me this week on Friday. It's currently available on all iOS devices. It's in beta on Android, so try it. It might be a little wonky, but it's definitely there for everybody. On Locker Room, I'm at John Karalis. Join the NBA group. You'll get notified when you follow me when my room goes live. Obviously, I'll be tweeting it out as well. You will not want to miss it at all. Again, Fridays, and I can't wait to hear all of your thoughts. Share your thoughts. It's a real conversation with me on Locker Room. It's not like this Q&A. Generally, we can actually have a conversation. It's very chill, very laid back. Okay, let's move on from here. Sway, is it safe to say that Aaron Nesmith has taken Shimon Ozils' minutes in the playoffs? Not necessarily safe to say because playoffs are dependent on matchups. And Aaron Nesmith has certainly taken Shimon Ozils' regular season minutes, for sure. And as long as he keeps playing hard and he keeps taking his shots confidently, I think that's going to continue, and he'll be just fine. In the playoffs, I'm not 100% sure that he's going to get the same run, that he's going to have the same impact. He's a rookie who has just started to break out in his last 3 games with 2 weeks left before the regular season ends. He's never experienced playoff basketball. Shimon Ozils has. He's never really had to defend any of these big stars in the past. Shimon Ozils has. He has proven himself to understand the situation, and I think at full health, Shimon Ozils still has the potential to be helpful. I know people want to get really down on Shimon Ozils. Shimon Ozils right now, this is his role, and this is, I think, his spot in the NBA. 9th, 10th guy on a bench, certainly has a role, can step up in an 8th or 9th bench spot, 7th man bench spot. If you ask him to start, you're going to get spotty results. But he's not an NBA starter. But this season, he's had to step in and do that. I'm not going to get down on Shimon Ozils because I know who he is, how hard he works, and what his role is supposed to be. Let's not go too crazy. I want to set the expectations the right way with Aaron Nesmith. He's been very good. It's very possible that he can continue this in the playoffs. It's also a little more likely that the moment might be a little too big for him. But at the same time, it's good that he's going to get that experience. And if he does get that experience, it's a good learning experience. That's why I think it is still important for the Celtics to get in there and make their playoff run. I'm not advocating for them to sit there and fall out of the play-in tournament and just say, forget it, go to next year. I'm advocating for them to get into the playoffs, make their run, and give Nesmith, give Pritchard this experience, because even though this might be a lost year, next season is so important that getting Nesmith and getting Pritchard and getting these younger guys, getting Romeo Langford back in there, getting them some playoff experience, at least understanding what the moment is. Next year, when the Celtics need them to make a deep playoff run, those guys at least have a sense of what's to come. What do you think of signing Chris Paul in free agency this year if he decides to leave Phoenix? First of all, I'm not putting any stock into him leaving Phoenix. I don't know what his contract situation is. Let me look that up real quick. But let me see here. Phoenix, Suns, Chris Paul. No, he's never mind. Next year, he's got a $44 million player option. He's not turning that down. That's the end of that answer right there. And the Phoenix situation has been good for him anyway. But he's not turning down $44 million, so forget that. Let's see. Moving on. A comment from Joseph Jackson. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson won their first ring in their 6th and 4th years, respectively, with Brown and Tatum in their 5th and 4th seasons. Why does the fan base lean to the window is closing? Well, there's a whole lot of negativity. This season has been a pile of dog crap. And honestly, the answer to this question, to me, is human psychology. That we have been trapped. We have spent a year kind of in various forms of quarantine, stuck at home. This season has hit people in the middle of the winter. So you're stuck at home. It's cold. It was cold and gross, and the sun was going down at 4:30 in the afternoon. Everybody's kind of pissed off in general. So I think the negativity, which was like here, goes up to here. And the people who are not watching, you just understand that my hand was down low and then it's up high. So I think there's a lot of added negativity. People want linear progress. Celtics went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now they have to go to the finals. Or they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals here. You have to improve and at least put a better showing on. The people do not accept that sports doesn't go in a straight line up. It's very much like a stock ticker that goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And sometimes teams do have a rapid ascent. Sometimes teams struggle for a while and then something clicks. Sometimes you sign somebody, sometimes you trade for somebody. People want things now. It's very much the Homer Simpson, flash fry of Buffalo in 40 seconds. 40 seconds, but I want it now. Immediate gratification. And with everything, people have been especially pissed off. The way this season has gone, people have been hurt. People have been sick. Nothing looks right. People are just angry. I've never had a worse experience on social media, man. People are coming at me with like super, super negativity. I can't stand it. So, and look, I admit I'm a positive guy, but I think I'm also realistic in, I from my perspective, I don't think, I'll tell you when I think something is wrong. Some people have different perspectives, which I firmly, enjoy, but the negativity is over the top this year. Let's see. Skylar wants to know, would Danny Green be a realistic comp for Nesmith's ceiling in the NBA? I wouldn't have thought so, but that would be, I think, if the Celtics get a Danny Green out of Aaron Nesmith, that would be amazing. That a defensive wing, switchable, good on ball, high energy guy, can I don't want to say attack a little bit. Yeah, I don't want Danny Green dribbling too much either, but take a dribble off a closeout, maybe pass the ball, move the ball, and then of course be a dead-eye shooter. If that is his ceiling, considering that Tatum and Brown are your two stars, and maybe you had a third star, maybe not, you need good role players. If Nesmith becomes a high-end role player like Danny Green, yeah, sign me up. Let's see here. Rolling on down. Man, lots of comments. This is great. Thank you for the comments, everybody. De Jour Falk, do you think it would help the team to get more veterans on the bench next year instead of people like Carson Edwards and Shimon Ozils? Yeah, I do think that, look, I keep bringing up the Jay Crowder type. I do kind of want somebody who has more chip on his shoulder type of just to add a little bit more edge. This team is lacking in edge. But, yeah, veteran help. And look, if the Celtics show themselves to be contenders. And depending on what they do, they do have the potential Kemba move, or whatever that's going to be. They do have the rest of the Evan Fournier trade exception, the Gordon Hayward trade exception, whatever they didn't spend on Fournier. They have that money to spend. They have the ability to sign a free agent, not a big-time free agent, but they do have some free agent money to spend where they otherwise wouldn't. So what moves did the Celtics make? What do they do on draft night? What do they end up adding? So it's possible that some veterans who think, hey, look, I still have something to give, but I want to go to a contender and have a chance at a championship. And I'm not saying, I'll use LaMarcus Aldridge as an example because he's had to retire. But somebody with something left to give that could maybe sign at a minimum or a biannual or one of the taxpayer mid-level type of contracts. If one of those guys looks around and says, hey, here's my chance to play 20, 25 minutes and contribute to a team, but because of Tatum and Brown and whatever else they have, I have a real shot at a championship, and we'll make our push into that top 4 and into that stratosphere with Brooklyn and Philly and Milwaukee. That there's a possibility that some good veterans, I don't have a list in front of me, but there's a possibility that some good veterans might at least consider Boston. Let's see here. Hawks 1, Knicks are winning. Any realistic path to 5, which is probably the same as 4, given limits on the fans. So let me see here. The Knicks, who are the Knicks playing? They're playing Memphis, and it's in the third quarter, and they're up 11. That would be a good win. This is a huge stretch for the New York Knicks. They're entering the second half. So first of all, 11 points in the second half is not a lot, but I got to give the Knicks credit. They're handling their business. I still think that there's a strong possibility that they can falter, and the Celtics are a game and a half out of that 5th seed. The Celtics need to start winning these games. They cannot have another loss, but I do think there's a realistic path because I think the Knicks could fall. I think the Knicks are due for some real losses. They've won 9 out of 10. And the Celtics play Miami twice, and Miami's 1 game ahead. So if you beat Miami twice, which obviously is a tall ask, a tall order, but if you beat Miami twice, there it is. That puts you into the 6th seed at the very least. And if New York falls, that could push you up into the 5th seed. And then whatever happens to Atlanta, they're out of time really to do anything differently. But there is certainly a possibility of them. Let's see. Boy. Aaron, at what point do you start considering the Celtics get a new coach? I'm not considering a new coach right now. Like, it's been very there's been a vocal group of people that has said they want a new coach, but I don't think that that's the problem. And the people who say new coach always want to pop up in the last few minutes of a bad quarter or a bad half. The people in the first half of the Spurs game, my mentions were flooded with, they've tuned out Brad, time to fire Brad. I don't hear from people when the Celtics are winning about firing Brad because it doesn't fit what they, how pissed off they are. But then in the second half, that's why I tweeted out, like, oh, I guess they tuned Brad back in. Because it's not about what Brad did or what Brad didn't do. He's telling them they need to do these things, and there's only so much motivation that an NBA coach can give. Like, I don't think people understand what the NBA really is. And that's at the heart of this. Because people don't understand NBA basketball versus college basketball or high school basketball. It's different. It might as well be, it's the Velveeta versus real cheese. Like it's the other stuff is Velveeta, and this is like the real cheese. Or flip it around. I don't care. But it's not the same thing. It's not. It might look the same, might feel the same, but it's not. The money changes a lot of things. The motivation changes a lot of things. So, sure, there's a time where the players do tune out the coach, and that becomes obvious. To me, that becomes obvious. You'll hear it in what they say. You'll see certain things on the sidelines. I just don't see it. I don't hear it. These guys are on board with how things are going. So I just don't see it as the coach. If it ever does become the coach, I will tell you, I'm not married to Brad Stevens. If he's not going to be the Celtics coach forever, there's going to be another coach in here someday. And by the time I'm done I'm retiring from doing what I do, there might be 5, 6, 7 more coaches for all I know. But this is not the time to get rid of Brad Stevens. I still think he's good, and there's more so. I just don't know that there's anybody better. And this is a critical time. On top of this, is a critical time for Tatum and Brown. Like, they're supposed to be contenders. Is this the time where you want new? You got to start learning something. I don't know. I'll get back to the questions in a second. First, rockauto.com is the place to go if you need anything for your car, no matter how simple, no matter how complicated. Go to rockauto.com. You pop into their very easy to use database, pop in your car specs, whatever you need. You'll see all of the options for your car. Like, I don't know much. I pop the hood, especially nowadays in the car. I don't know what the hell is under there. I'm not going to be ordering complicated car parts, but you might. And it's all there, and it doesn't matter if you're a pro or a do-it-yourselfer. RockAuto.com is going to have the same price for everybody. That is not necessarily true at the other places. If you go to one of those strip mall, brick-and-mortar, chain stores, you're going to get whatever's sitting on the shelf. You're going to waste your time. You're going to stand in line, and that person's just going to give you whatever they have. Stay at home. Use RockAuto.com from the comfort of your own home, and you're going to get everything that you need at a great price. Check them out right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. When you do buy something, write Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box. That's how they know we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. Looking to place some money on some sports action? Go to BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to do that. Baseball, NBA, obviously, hockey. There's plenty to bet on. Sports around the world. So get all the latest news, odds, info for all of your sporting needs, even UFC, MMA, all that stuff. Before the next pitch, head on over to BetOnline. Use your laptop, mobile device. Check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. This is your chance to get into the game as teams preps for their runs to the playoffs. Head on over to the website. Use your mobile device, whatever. Sign up today. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Whatever your first deposit is, $200, $100 welcome bonus with the promo code Locked On at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Please gamble responsibly if you do decide to do so. Let me take a drink because I've been talking for half an hour. All right, let's get back to the questions. Besides fatigue, what's the biggest drawback of the play-in games? Lack of practice time, psychological toll? Yeah, well, first of all, it's disappointing if you're the Celtics to be in, or the Lakers, or one of those, like the 6th seed falling into the play-in tournament. I think that's like, there's a mental like, oh God, I can't believe we did this. Now, if you're the 10th seed and you're in, you're pumped. You've got the opportunity to upset somebody. So the psychology is different for different teams, but you have that psychology issue. Of course, it does cut into your practice time. For the Celtics specifically, it cuts rest. It cuts rest out of their schedule, because if they are the 6th seed or the 5th seed or the 4th seed, then they get to kind of chill out for a couple of days and get off their feet, Watch some game film. If you know you're playing either the Hawks or the Knicks, like if that stuff is settled and you get to sit on your laptop or your iPad and go through the clips and start to mentally prepare for all of the stuff. You get to go to the, get treatment and massages and all that stuff and maybe lift some weights or whatever. That stuff is all, that's all part of it. So, yeah, that's going to be the biggest problem. Next comment. It's unfortunate to see Jabari Parker get so many DNPs as of late. I was hopeful it would be different this time on the Celtics. So two things. It shouldn't be surprising that when the Celtics are whole, that Jabari Parker isn't getting playing time. He just got here. It's not like he's gonna get a ton of minutes in the playoffs. He's not. You put him out there and he's gonna get targeted like crazy defensively. So the thing with Jabari Parker is he'll have an opportunity if he stays with the Celtics to make his case for some bench minutes. And maybe it will be different this time. It's possible that the Celtics find a way to use him, like Danny Ainge said, like they figured out how to use Evan Turner. Like that could be a problem. I mean, not a problem. It could be a problem, I suppose. But that could be a way that, however they decide, like whatever that version is for Jabari Parker. Now, Jabari Parker could also be a salary that's aggregated in a trade and it's non-guaranteed and whatever. Like they could just use him as a contract that could be. I don't know if anybody wants him, but it shouldn't be a surprise that Jabari Parker is getting DNPs. Let's see. Let's move on. Is Aaron Nesmith still in your fantasy team? My fantasy team is long done, and I'm the worst fantasy basketball player because I'll go on a stretch where I'm good. I'm making my moves and all that stuff, and then I forget. I get caught up with work, and it's like, oh, I haven't set my lineup in 3 days. I had Jayson Tatum, and then I had 3 days of Jayson Tatum on the bench. Like, whoops. So, no, that's going out. Here's a question here. Going back to your expectations before the beginning of the season, would you say that the Celtics performed better or worse than your expectations? Well, very obviously worse in general, because I will say I did not expect this level of COVID problems. I did not take that into account. So I understand why they underperformed my expectations, but my expectations were certainly higher as far as quality of performance. And I think if we go back and listen to some of my preseason expectations, I thought that what we see at the top of the East, that's kind of what I thought would happen. Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee were the clear class of the East. Boston, I thought, was in a tier by itself, not as good as those teams, but not as bad as some of the other teams behind them. And then I thought 5, 6, 7 would be Miami, possibly Indy, a couple of other teams in there. Might be slipping my mind. I didn't think Atlanta would be up there. I didn't think New York would be up there. Charlotte, I thought, would fight for the 8th seed. Toronto, thought Toronto would be better. They obviously got so screwed, so that doesn't even count, really. I thought Orlando would be better than they are, but I thought the Celtics would be in a tier by themselves in 4th. So clearly they underperformed my expectations, but I still thought they'd be 4th, and they could still be 4th. And I think considering all of the COVID stuff, I think the worst thing that happened to the Celtics was those games that got postponed, got jammed back into the February schedule. That was a killer. That was a real killer for them. So that's the answer. They underperformed, but I know why they underperformed. Vlad, do the Celtics run it back with Tristan and Williams at the center spot next season? I like the center. See, this is the cool thing about putting these graphics up. You can tell who's classy, who's like a classy like Canadian, the center, Centre. I like that. We need to do that more often. I think what we see next season is Rob probably becomes the full-time starter, and maybe Tristan moves to the bench. I think we've seen with these guys that's fine. That works out well for the Celtics. If Robert Williams can strengthen his left leg, all of that. He has had tendonitis in that left knee. He's had problems with that left hip. He's got to figure out over the summer how to either change his gait to relieve pressure on that left leg somehow, or change how he runs, or change how he strengthens that leg so he can be ready for 30-plus minutes a game. Like, he should be averaging 32, 33 minutes a game next year as a Celtics starting center. Do that. Work on your handle. Work on your jump shot a little bit. Be able to, like, set a pick, short roll, mid-range jumper. That's going to be a thing that we don't want to see him take a ton of, but he's going to be able to get that. And he's going to need to hit that when Tatum and Brown and Smart get a ton of attention when they drive. So, but I think that with that and with Tristan off the bench, that's fine. People get caught up in the center position a lot. The center position is a position that can be held down. You can keep Luke Cornett around. Like, that's fine. If you say, hey, Luke, we're going to sign you to, I don't even know what his contract situation is, but keep you around, end of bench, break glass in case of emergency. Maybe situationally, he can be a pick and pop guy. That's fine. You keep those three guys, done. Move on. I'm fine with that. Should I go, was it Coombsy? Should I go all in on Nesmith and Pritchard rookie cards? Hey, you never know. Let's see. Mr. Duncan, whatever, this is obscured. Panathinaikos or Olympiakos? All right, Olympiakos. My father's from Piraeus, and that's the team from Piraeus. So, which is funny because this is like what I'm about to say for people who don't know Greek basketball. It's like being a Boston fan rooting for like Philly or something. My dad grew up an Ajax fan, but the home team from where my dad grew up is Olympiakos. So, but the other funny thing is Panathinaikos is they're green and white and they've got the shamrock. So it'd be a very nice, very easy transition to wear Panathinaikos stuff, have that shamrock on. I couldn't do it. It's funny. I thought I had my hat around here somewhere too. The red and the black of Olympiakos. So that's that. I'll put that there. We're going to wrap this up soon because we're starting to go long, but let's get this question up here from Bailey. Donovan Mitchell or Jayson Tatum? Who's got it better? Who's got it better? That's interesting. Well, Donovan Mitchell currently has the better team. Jayson Tatum's obviously the better player. I think I'm going to say Tatum has it better in Boston because he's more obviously the centerpiece, and you can say, here's a question. The better player is Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum is the better player. Jayson is certainly more dynamic. He's bigger. He's a better defender. I would take him over Donovan Mitchell. There's a strong argument that Donovan Mitchell's not even the best player on his team right now. So, or the most important player on his team for sure. So, I'm taking Tatum first in that draft. If you say which star are you building your team around, it's Tatum for sure. Let's get when are we going to see the Raina Jays live on YouTube? I don't know. We got to get these guys together. Are there any more here? I'm skipping over a few, but and this will be my last one because I'm going 40 minutes here, and my throat's going to fall out. Is it crazy to think that an early playoff exit is better than a deep playoff run that does not end in a title? Players could rest, work on skills, rehab medical issues, etc. in another short offseason. I understand what you're saying here, that getting to the conference finals again cuts into July, and it's another short offseason. Get bounced in the second round or first round. You've made the playoffs. Look, I can't say that one is better than the other. I understand what you're saying, and certainly getting guys the rest for next season. The argument is, if you're not going to win a title anyway, make the playoffs, say you made the playoffs, get these guys some experience, and you move on. Theoretically, yes. However, from a player's perspective, I just want to win. Like, I'm thinking of it from a player's perspective. You get these guys more experience. Each time, each step you get a little bit closer. You get to that second round. The psychology of getting past that second round, losing in the conference finals, or making it to the NBA finals and losing, that drives people. That adds some hunger. And if Tatum and Brown get to the NBA finals together, you say, look, and this is clearly fantasy right now because they're not good enough to get to the NBA finals. But let's just say, if they do make a deep playoff run like that, somewhere in that sphere, and Tatum and Brown look at each other and be like, man, we are so close, even after everything that we've been through, we get there. Look at the experience that you got, Nesmith and Pritchard and these other guys. Making that deep run makes it more likely that you sign somebody else, that one of those veteran free agent guys that I talked about earlier looks at Boston as a legitimate contender and says, I got to go there. That's going to be my opportunity to play and potentially win a title. So that's important as well. I think that has value, and I just can't advocate for losing. I think I would rather get them deep into the playoffs if they can. However deep they go. Look, if it's July, they still have August, they still have September, they still have time, and you can manage that next season. I think I go for the experience over the other scenario. As long as Tatum doesn't go to the Olympics, like that's where I don't want Tatum to go to the Olympics. They might want him to go to the Olympics the way he's playing right now. They might want him to. That I would have an issue with if he went from long playoff run to the Olympics, then August off, like, oh God, enough. But all right, I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to thank everybody. There's a ton of messages here. I did not get to them all, but I thank everybody for watching. This has been great. This has worked out very well for me. The YouTube Live, the Periscope, I threw it on Periscope as well. I hope people are subscribing to the YouTube page. I'm really trying to drive that YouTube page and get that up. That's the next step here. So I've turned my living room, people who are watching on video, into some sort of set. I got my books over here. I got my jerseys on the back wall. I got a little signage over here. I got a signed, that's a Paul Pierce basketball over there. So, which I got through a charity auction. That was a charity purchase. So, I just want to thank everybody, and hopefully you spread the word and share that the show is on YouTube now, and hopefully you're enjoying the videos. If you've got suggestions, things you want to see, different ways, like I'm not a big YouTube user, so if there are ways that other people are using YouTube that you've seen that you think would work for me, send it along in the comments, contact me, go through my website, johnkaralis.com. There's a way to message me through there. While you're there, buy my book, $30, signed copy, gets into your door. But mostly share the podcast. Tell your friends that they should be listening to the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.